Hi everyone, I'm Sanjana and I have Ashwin Krishna with me today to talk about PR marketing. Hi Ashwin, thank you for joining me today.
Hey Sanjana, thank you so much. It's
It's
it's always fun to talk with someone who is in the same space
yeah,
as a fellow community member.
yeah. I totally understand. I've been into the content space for a long time, but I've not done PR marketing. So I'm looking forward to learn everything about PR marketing from you today. So just to give an intro about Ashwin, Ashwin is currently the global marketing director of Tact AI with 15 plus years of experience across various functions in marketing. And he's also named the most influential tech marketer by Economic Times. So I'm glad to welcome you again, and shall we get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Ashwin, my first question is, SaaS companies' major focus is always on demand gen and lead gen, all of that sorts, right? So how important is PR for B2B SaaS companies?
Sure, I think it's a very relevant question because most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, including me, right, marketers,
Hmm.
SaaS marketers, including me, focus all
Yeah,
of their energies in the lead gen.
yeah,
Right? And then
exactly.
we talk about PR when it comes to funding, when it comes to, let's say, things are not working right. But let's take a step back. Let's take a step back on how any product is bought. Forget SaaS for a moment. Is you have to build an awareness. Somebody has to be aware saying, hey, I have this problem. Right? Let's say
Yeah,
a brand in the current world who is offline doesn't have a digital presence. They have to have that awareness saying, hey, I don't have the digital presence right? That's the first stage in the whole buying journey. The second stage is about getting educated about, hey, what should I do for this problem? In this case of offline stores or physical stores, they should be educated about, hey, I can go out there in the social media, I can talk about my brand. That's about building the brand. But second part is if I really want people to buy from me, then I have to either be on Amazon or I have to start my own online store actually. That's the education part. And finally, people would, these retailers, they would go and buy a tech stack. Right? So I'll sort of simplify this into three steps: awareness, education, and buying. Most of the time, we focus only on the education and the buying phase. Right? So where you go there, get ranked in search engines, you go there, be there in a conference and really set up a booth with the mission of getting leads. So all of that is great. All of that is truly mid and the bottom line. And most of the time, we don't understand and appreciate that without an awareness, how one can actually, come to our website and let's say, call us and then buy a product actually. And I think it all sort of boils down to storytelling. I think storytelling is possibly the most underrated aspect of any aspect of SaaS or possibly technology world because technology right now is commoditized, right? Because of cloud and APIs, we can literally build a product with no code tool and sort of integrate with
yeah,
existing system of records. But storytelling, I would say, is equally important. It's absolutely critical. I think a great product and a mediocre story or a mediocre product and a great story will only lead a company to a certain level. But a great product and a great story can truly, turbocharge the company's trajectory. And hence, I would say, just taking a step back, coming back to the question, storytelling is equally important than a great product. I think PR is one small aspect of storytelling, right? It's a vehicle through which you can really build the brand. It's a it's a mass vehicle, right? It's about using the right targeted media, which your audience actually also subscribe to or they read, be it the tech media, or they'll say, if you are in the retail tech, then it's about retail media, which are read by, let's say, the audience in the same space, or it can be social, right? So while PR is a very big ocean, I will sort of only double down and talk about a few things today. I think PR is not just about putting out that funding story. it really starts with the founder actually. So always keep telling founders, start telling stories even before you write the first line of code. And then PR is one small aspect of that. I'll sort of possibly talk about how to do it. But I think the prima facie what we have to understand is uh, PR is not just about this funding story you put out. It's also about the industry point of views which the founder would write. It's the countless free calls which the product team does to analysts, right? So on and so forth. Are this small little burb which comes about, which gets covered in a let's say a economic times, let's say in India, which covers the company culture actually. I think all of this net come under the PR bucket. But the point is, the first hire for a PR is really the founder, I think. So the importance is about appreciating that the PR in the storytelling is as important as a great product. I think prima facie it starts from there, and then from there, if we have that strong DNA of storytelling, I think PR would be a small portion of that. And yeah, in a nutshell, I think it's as critical as I would say a great product, and it's as critical as the lead gen campaigns which you do actually. And why? Because just to sort of sum up, if you're not creating your recall in the awareness stage, it becomes it becomes very hard for your buyers to have you have you in the consideration set actually, right? When let's say they understand that you are the one who sort of understand, let's say the whole online store business really well, that's when they'll possibly remember and come to you using the branded keyword term, and they'll buy from you, for this e-commerce product example. So that's in a nutshell. I think the most important thing is be there in the awareness stage, not just in the education and the purchase phase of the funnel.
Yeah, got it. I completely agree. And I think PR is very critical for companies to get the word out. So you're talking about e-commerce brands and SaaS brands, right? So how is PR different in SaaS compared to consumer brands?
Sure. So I think fundamentally the basic objective of PR or storytelling is the same, irrespective of the company type, right? It's about earning the mind share and earning the wallet share. So mind share
Okay.
is really about awareness and some of the softer metrics. Wallet share is really the revenue, right? It's
Okay.
the basic framework is the same for consumer brands and SaaS brands, but what differs is the scope and the canvas actually, right? So SaaS
Okay.
brands, because the buyers are very focused, the ICP is very specific, the persona is very specific. So the canvas and the scope would get very limited for SaaS actually. B2C companies, as you know, they have a very wide canvas to play. Let's say,
Hmm.
we have done really well in Olympics compared to the last year. So consumer brands have a play to do this moment marketing, be it Olympics or
Hmm.
be it anything else, right? But SaaS
Yeah.
companies have a fairly limited canvas to play. However, companies like Gong and Drift have really proved it wrong. They've really done great work in all the way from doing moment marketing to really uh, adding a humorous twist to the storytelling. I think they've done incredibly well in terms of really be there out there in talking about the customer pain points, talking about the humorous instances. Let's say the buyers are in, not really crossing the line. So hence what I can potentially say is, we have a lot to learn from B2C brands. I think SaaS brands has a lot to learn from B2C brands. So two things, right? One is being humorous and lighthearted. Second, I think, is really doing that moment marketing, right? Where how do you really stitch the current context with exactly what's the problem that you're solving actually. Like for example, I still remember we essentially at Capillary we were catering to large retailers because we had a whole suite of products for large retailers. We celebrated Retail Employees Day, right? So Retail Employees Day is a day which is dedicated for our customers' employees actually, right? So it's a day dedicated for the store staff, which ideally our customers will celebrate, and they were celebrating. Now we actually took that as an agenda, as a big idea, and then what we did is we essentially spoke to a lot of the foot soldiers, which is folks in the store. We understood they have spend about 8 to 10 hours a day, ever smiling, ever caring for their, for the customers. And then all we just said, hey, these are the folks who truly make your shopping experiences better. These are the ones who will bring a smile at you. So please say thank you to them, right? So please don't, please hold back your thoughts. If let's say shopping experience goes bad, and also just say thank you to them. And this whole idea really was very well accepted by our audience, because they felt happy because we celebrated their employees actually. And this is one example of modern marketing, right? Where we, on the day of Retail Employees Day, we celebrated their employees, which CEOs also ignored sometimes. And then a lot of them wrote back to us saying, a lot of bunch of CEOs wrote back to us saying, hey, we appreciate and understand the role of the front of the store staff, but it's great that you understood and appreciated the fact that they form the pillars of our company actually. And hence, I think that was just an example. The point is, I think SaaS brands can truly, I think they have a long way to go in terms of the whole creativity aspect. Creativity is not just about being creative, right, for the sake of it, but truly being contextual, relevant, in the moment, and also a bit lighthearted wherever it's required, right? There's a lot to learn from B2C brands. I think that's what I can essentially say actually.
Yeah, it actually motivates me to study B2C brands now. So I'm just curious, what type of B2C brands do you follow the most? Do you recommend?
Okay, sure. I think a lot of I would say D2C brands are great. I think something like a Whole Truth Food is, I think Shashank does a great job of storytelling. I think essentially as a mission, he and the company has a mission to make the food healthy and then really bring back truth into not just storytelling, but also, let's say, the product packaging and some of that, right? I just love the Whole Truth, not just one campaign, but the framework and the thought process actually. Of course, the legendary Amul, because I've read the Amul story, and they do some phenomenal work, not just about the marketing, but also about the new product development and some of that. Yeah, mostly the B2C brands, I would say, they're doing some incredible work in storytelling.
Awesome. And earlier in the conversation, you're talking about how SaaS companies focus only on the funding news, right? So do you have any story ideas that SaaS startups should think about when it comes to PR, other than funding news?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I think it's incredibly important to really think PR as a vehicle which will help you convey the news to a very large audience. Might not be just the ICPs and the personas you're looking at. And it has to be wholesome, right? It's not just about really working with a PR agency for funding announcement, which any which ways get covered. So let's think about it from a wholesome angle, right? I think let's talk about what are the kind of stories media would love to cover actually. So number one is the industry stories. Again, let's say you're in e-commerce space, let's say you're an e-com brand, especially in the last, let's say 2015 to 18, when I was leading marketing for Capillary, and then we had an e-commerce product. There's so much happening in the marketplace, Flipkart and the Amazon and the e-commerce space actually. So we spend a great deal of time in understanding who are these journalists who are talking about these industry stories around e-commerce, and we really understood what are they talking, what are the type of stories they're covering. We figured out how can we position ourselves, how can we also contribute our knowledge and information. For example, we released data about what is the percentage of sales happening in the offline for offline retailers, through e-commerce actually. So industry story is one bucket. The second bucket is really about the contextual stories, right? There's a lot happening in the regulation space. At one point in time, B2B commerce FDI limit was lifted, right? And then definitely, for B2C, even now, only the marketplace is allowed, right? So where one cannot sell directly to consumers in India. Let's say a foreign company can't come in India and they can't sell to consumers directly. So keeping this an angle, right? So we also, there's a contextual story actually. Keeping this an angle, we actually released a report on what does the brand should consider when it comes to FDI in e-commerce actually. And we simplified this 45-page report, which the government has launched, into just 2 pages actually. And interestingly, a lot of
Okay.
the media outlets picked it up, and because at the end of the day, we helped them with the work, right? We made the whole regulatory document simplified. So I think this is a contextual story actually. And in the same lines, we can talk about customer stories, where you can bring forth some of the legendary customers that you have and make them tell the story actually, right? So imagine
Oh,
a large brand
good one.
has done exceedingly well, and then it's all about them. It's not just about we helping them as a SaaS brand, but imagine if they want to talk about this story, and then how do we encourage them to encourage their PR team to talk about it, right? Of course, we will be there as a, let's say, partner, tech partner, but that's the third bucket, which is the customer story. So fourth is the product story, right, which is really about you and about the product, etc., which will take time, to get covered. The fifth pillar is the people story. So it's about unearthing some gems within your company. Let's say woman in tech. Let's say there is a developer who is doing exceedingly well in the community, helping the other woman to code well. Maybe bring her story out, right? So bring her story out, and then that in indirectly it will build your brand actually. So I would say 5 or 6 pillars, which is all the way starting with the industry story, contextual story, customer stories, product stories. Yeah, of course, we can talk about corporate story, where we can cover funding as one bucket. People stories, right? I think this is the 5-6 story buckets which the company should think about when it comes to PR.
That is really interesting, and I didn't know that you have a lot of these types when it comes to PR news. I've been in this industry for 8 years now, and I could only think of funding news when it comes to PR, but this opened my mind. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now I have $1 million question for you. So how can startups aim for Forbes and TechCrunch without burning a hole in the pocket?
Yeah, sure. I think if I am a founder, if I am a marketing head, I think the big question that I would have when it comes to PR is, hey, can I get covered in HPR? Can I get covered in TechCrunch? Can I get covered in Forbes? Right? I think
Yeah,
that's a valid question. I think that's an aspiration which every founder in the marketing head will have actually. And the answer for my answer for that, I mean, based on my experience, is you can get there, and without burning a hole in the pocket, right? Without burning a hole in the pocket, or with what it means is you don't really have to have a flashy PR firm to get there actually. Right? I think let me tell you from my experience actually, right? So the way I typically do it, try and put a framework and execute it from the first principle, then sort of constantly iterate the framework so much so that you can replicate, right? Because everything in life for me is a framework, and of course in marketing it's about data and all of that, right? I think you can really make a framework out of everything. So really for, we essentially got covered in Harvard Business Review as a case study. We got covered in TechCrunch, Forbes, many times actually, right? So, and of course we use agencies sometimes, but I'll tell you
Okay.
instance, how we got covered in Forbes. We got
Yeah.
almost a cover story, not in the cover really, but it was a 3 or a 4-page story actually. I'll tell you kind of how we got there. I think I always love examples. We'll try and talk about it. So how we sort of started was we started, as I said, we started tracking what are different stories which would be relevant for our audience in terms of the reading. So then we made a list of journalists actually, right? So we made a list of all journalists who are covering this retail tech across the board actually. Let's say, if you're an ERP company, this guy called Frederick on TechCrunch who writes about ERPs actually, enterprise resource planning. So the first thing is to really list down the folks, with TechCrunch folks, etc. A list of journalists who cover your industry actually, right? So
Okay.
then you know that whom do you want to reach out to when you have a news, which is the short-sighted way of looking at it. So the long-term way of looking at it is to, once you have this list, start reaching out to them. And of course, you will not know them. That's fine. I think 99% of us don't know them. That's fine. The way you reach out to your prospects in a cold way, reach out to them actually. Treat them as prospects and write emails to them.
Okay.
Write a cold email to them and then ask them, hey, incredible story about, I read your story about, let's say, Oracle ERP. I agreed to some of these insights, and I also have a counter view to some of the
Okay.
insights you have. And I would love kind of, we have been in this industry for, I've been in this industry for quite some time. Happy to jump on a call to share my insight. And also you can start sharing insights based on your experience on, let's say, what's happening in Asia when it comes to ERP industry, right? And most of the Western media, they don't have a very on the feed view, or very specific view when it comes to India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, or APAC as a overall market actually. And hence, if you build a confidence in, you can be that go-to person who can share insights about, let's say, let's say Southeast Asia in that specific industry, or let's say, what's happening in overall as an industry. Um, the point is to be on that speed dial, right? So you write emails, most of them don't reply. You be persistent, continuously share insights, which is helpful for them, right? Which will help them shape their views about the industry. See, end of the day, you have to be in order to get a story. First, you have to build the trust, feed them insights, and one fine day, they will. If you are on the speed dial, they'll call you saying, "Hey, uh, I got this news saying there's this acquisition happening in ERP domain. A is buying B. So, what are your views as an industry expert, actually, right?" So there are very high chances that your blurb will get covered in the story of that acquisition. So that's a great starting point, right? So getting a small blurb in a large story is a great starting point, and all you have to be is persistent, very systematically go out, relentlessly, share invaluable insights, based on the platform data you get, etc. Of course, not divulge any customer data, but really about what is your understanding based on some of the interactions you do, right? So package that, talk to them, be open, right? I think the most important point which a lot of founders miss is, they are shy, right? They're shy in talking to media, and then I can understand that. Um, so they have to get rid of this shyness actually, right? They should just think about the media folks are the prospective audience or the prospective buyers, and they just have to do is pitch their ideas, not really the product idea, but they have to pitch what the pitch that they know the industry, and then continuously share reports, share insights, and getting blurbs is possibly a first step. And one fine day, believe me, one fine day you'll be out there, because they would have known your company and your thoughts so well. Even without your knowledge, one fine morning you will potentially get a story. That's how things happened at the Forbes cover story, right? We spoke for about 9 months.
Oh,
Literally everything he understood from us about AI in retail. We literally thought, hey, I don't know why we're wasting time educating him about artificial intelligence in retail. Of course, we showed the product, we showed the examples, all of that. And one fine day he called back and said, hey, next week your story is going live. I need some final clarification, and boom, we were there actually.
nice. Okay. So do you have these conversations only via email, or do you also use other modes of communication like LinkedIn, engaging with them on LinkedIn, messaging them on LinkedIn, or any other platform in that instance?
Yeah, sure. I think the end of the day, it's similar to similar to like your friends, right? You get in touch with friends, get in touch with your audience, your customers. Email, LinkedIn, call, whichever they are comfortable with. Let's say WhatsApp. Uh, so starts with email. Uh,
Okay.
Second step is call, one or two calls. The 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 win will be when they will start reaching out to you on WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is a more one is to one channel. When they start reaching out to you on WhatsApp or message saying, hey, I need this help, can you really help me, and I'm this final leg of covering the story. My desk director is on my head. I need to cover the story today, end of the day. If you become a savior by replying them on a WhatsApp, or you just pick up a phone and call them, um, you know, you help them and they'll help you actually.
Yeah, I think this is not very different from the enterprise sales prospecting. I think it's the same, right? So this is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if
Uh,
founders, I think they sort of have to forget that they're talking to media folks, right? And of course, they have the reservations talking about the company, funding, revenues, all of that. But otherwise, right? So keeping that off, talking about the insights, talking about what they know, talking about their unique point of view, just the way they talk to their prospective buyers, they just have to dumb it down,
exactly.
simplify it, give analogies, tell stories to media folks, right? And trust me, you speak to a media person for 3 hours, and you give something in the last 30 seconds, and that would become the headline actually. And then you just
Oh,
have to have your ears on the ground and figure out what
okay.
this journalist really cares, right? Some of them just cares about um, hiring actually, right? So while I still remember we had this long conversation with this tier one media. uh, the founder was so passionate to share about the product roadmap, all of that. Finally, the last line he said was, hey, we're hiring. And that became the headline of the story, that this company is hiring like
Uh,
massively actually.
oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Makes sense. All right. So this is really interesting. I thank you so much for sharing this blueprint with us. Not everybody shares, so this is really helpful as well for those who are trying to get started with PR marketing. Thank you for that. And now the most commonly asked question in every company. So do we need to build an internal PR team or work with an agency? What is the magic formula for startups?
Sure. I think there's no magic formula, I would say. I think, but I'll try and sort of share my point of views around the possibilities, right? Because
Yeah.
there's no silver bullet answer. But I mean, the point is, as I said, the first PR person or the first storyteller for any company is really the founder, actually. The founder is someone who knows the objective, who know why they started the company, etc. And hence, the first storyteller, the first PR hire for a company is the founder, actually,
Yeah.
right? And then let's kind of figure out companies at different stages, right? So all the way from pre-market, pre pre-product market fit, when they don't have revenue, their base location is, let's say, one country, etc. Right? Sorry, just a second. So
Yeah.
just one country. I think typically what companies should do is do it internally. Right? So because
Oh,
one,
okay.
they don't have sufficient presence in terms of the
Yeah.
awareness. They're just launching the product. So I don't believe in hiring an agency unless you have raised some funding and then you have some breathing
Yeah.
space.
Budget is a
Otherwise,
concern.
typically, absolutely, do this cold outreaches just the way you reach out to your audience. Do a bit of cold outreach, pick up a call,
Okay.
get some references in the media world, right? And then do very targeted outreach to a specific set of audience, specific set of journalists. I think that will sort
Journalist.
of take care of itself, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the second stage, right, when let's say you're at $2-3 million kind of revenue, you want to get into new geographies. Let's say you have a base location in the US, you want to expand to Europe. Of course, you have some money in the bank now, and the best is to double down which geography you want to launch, and definitely
Okay.
work with a small agency, not a very big agency, because
Okay.
bigger agencies just take a lot of your time in just setting up the process and all of that, and very less time in actually executing it, right? So it's better you work with a small agency through reference who really want to work with you and understand the market really well, because most of the PR agencies don't understand SaaS or tech, actually, right? So pick up that boutique agency, small agency in that geography you want to launch, um, and then work with them extremely closely to one, make them understand what industry is, what is the product, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Not just then, but also have a very watertight plan, quarterly plan, and then ensure you work with them in and out to make it happen. Otherwise, what typically happens in any case, right, be it this stage, hyper growth stage, or even in the mature stage, you and the agency have an interlock uh, about the quarterly plan. And if you don't work with them day in and day out to make that happen, otherwise, what would happen is next quarter, when the quarter begins, you will have a briefing call where they will say, "Hey, we didn't get enough support from you, hence we were not able to do anything this quarter,
Oh,
actually."
okay.
And hence, you should have while the quarterly plan, you should ensure you have those milestones. What are the stories, possible story angles,
Okay.
which are the journalists which uh, which one can be targeted, etc. And then really execute it, week by week, actually. And constantly kind
Okay.
of based on the situation, based on where the industry is headed, this plan would change. Right? Let's say 80% would remain, 20% would be iterative.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Got it.
again, it can be done internally and externally, right? So the pros of doing internally is control. If it's done correctly with the right set of people, let's say there is folks who have been in the media, who knows the network well, um, it can work wonders. But the challenge is if that person leaves, and everything would start from ground zero, right? And it's incredibly
Yeah.
important to build this whole process as an engine. So what it means is,
Okay.
there is a specific way, the specific cadence in which we will reach out to the journalist. Founder will
Yeah.
have close connects. So even if the PR person leaves, you always have a fallback option, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
While
Yeah.
the agency, as I said, a
Totally makes
lot
sense.
of the agencies don't understand SaaS. Again, the advantage is, in a new geography, they'll be invaluable, actually. They'll be invaluable, especially in terms of understanding the local nuances, etc.
Okay. Got it. Makes sense. And how do you measure the impact of PR?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, this is kind of a $1 million question, because you spend
Okay.
you spend a lot of money, but end of the day, how do you measure is extremely critical.
Yeah.
Extremely critical. I think there are a few ways you can do it. I think in a short-term point of view, you can look at things like branded keyword search increase, because if somebody has read about you and of course they will search for your company name and they'll come to your website. So things like branded keyword search increase, direct traffic to website is definitely another indicator. The golden metric is really the teeth in the pipeline, which we get from the direct traffic, are people who have did the branded keyword search and then they come to website, submitted information, they convert into customer. This is short-term metric. So long-term metric is the brand recall, right? Brand recall or the mind share that you create. Are you there in the top three? If somebody is looking for a e-com product, are you in the top three consideration set? So the way you can do it is really work with a third-party agency, right? Again, this is really in a advanced stage. Let's say you cross X million dollar kind of a era, where they will survey, talk to your ICP in the ICP specific persona, saying, hey, what are the top three companies which would come to your mind, when you're buying for a solution, actually, let's say an e-commerce solution. Then if you're there in the top three, then great. But quarter on quarter, you have to figure out where you are in terms of what is the percentage jump that you're seeing. And then PR is a great, as I said, PR is a great vehicle to, get this mind share.
Okay, got it. All right, so I think I've exhausted all my questions, but before we go, do you have any advice that you want to give it away to our listeners?
Sure, I think it's a great time to learn, upskill, reskill yourself, because typically you would have traveled, if you go to office, you would have spent like a couple of hours in travel. So my only advice is use those 2 hours, a couple of hours, which you have in hand, to really bookmark a few good podcasts, few good blog posts, and then sort of reskill, upskill yourselves. And this is a great time to kind of introspect and really set a bigger goal for your career in life, actually, because this 2 hours is a bonus for you, right? I think my only advice is reskill and upskill, and then use this as an opportunity to reinvent yourself as an individual.
100%. I think I live by that. And I totally understand what you're trying to say. This is very important, especially now that we have so much time left in the day. It's really important that we spend that time, in a productive way by upskilling ourselves. Thank you so much for giving that advice. All right, so we've reached the end of the episode. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. This was valuable, the conversation that we had, and you were full of energy and enthusiasm throughout the conversation. So I'll give you a LinkedIn link in the description so people can connect with you later. I know that you share a lot about marketing and PR, so people should definitely follow you if they are on LinkedIn. So it was nice talking to you, Ashwin, and talk to you again.
Absolutely, Sanjay. And thanks for the opportunity. It's always fun to kind of share some knowledge, insights, and also hopefully this would be, hopefully it will be worth valuable for your audience.
Definitely, it will. All right, Ashwin. So yeah,
Sure.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.